One man's passion for picking turned into a television phenomenon. Frank Fritz wasn't just a collector. He was a storyteller, a treasure hunter, and a personality that millions grew to love. But behind the laughter and the antiques, there was a deeper story, one filled with triumphs, struggles, and an unexpected final chapter. Join us as we talk about what they found in Frank Fritz's estate that will leave you speechless. A collector from the start, the shocking news of Frank Fritz's death left fans and collectors stunned. His journey from a small-town kid with a love for collecting to a well-known television personality was one filled with passion, determination, and unexpected twists. But to truly understand his story, we have to go back to where it all began, his early life. Frank Fritz was born on October 11, 1963, in Davenport, Iowa. From a young age, he had a fascination with objects that told a story. While most kids were busy with toys or sports, Frank was already on the hunt for hidden treasures. He collected just about anything he could get his hands on: coins, stamps, beer cans, and even old razor blades. Where other people saw junk, he saw history. Imagine being a kid and walking into an antique shop filled with dusty shelves, old clocks ticking, and faded photographs staring back at you. That was the world Frank fell in love with. He wasn't just interested in owning things. He wanted to know their past. Who used this old pocket watch? Where had this rusty sign once hung? These were the kinds of questions that filled his mind as Frank grew older. His interests expanded. He moved on from small collectibles to bigger treasures: motorcycles, dirt bikes, and rare memorabilia. He spent hours at flea markets and garage sales, always searching for the next great find. Some people might have thought he was just a kid with a strange hobby, but to Frank, it was something much bigger. It was a passion, a way of life. But here's the twist: he didn't jump straight into the world of antiques as a career. After high school, life took him in a completely different direction. For nearly 25 years, Frank worked as a fire inspector in Iowa. It was a serious job, one that required attention to detail and a commitment to public safety. While he was busy making sure buildings were up to code, his love for collecting never faded, and in a way, his job actually fueled his passion. As a fire inspector, Frank got to visit old buildings, firehouses, and warehouses, all filled with forgotten treasures. He started collecting firehouse memorabilia, helmets, extinguishers, antique fire alarms, anything that connected to history. Little did he know, this side hobby would eventually change his life. At some point, Frank realized something important. His collectibles weren't just personal treasures, they had real value. He started buying and selling items, turning his passion into a profitable side business. What if he could do this full-time? What if he could spend his days searching for forgotten relics and bringing them back to life? It wasn't an easy decision to leave behind a stable career, but Frank took the risk. He opened his own antique shop, Frank's Finds, where he focused on selling firemen's equipment and other unique trinkets. It was a small step, but it set the stage for something much bigger: the rise of a picker's journey. Frank may have become the most famous person in the world of picking, but his story wasn't just about antiques. It was about passion, friendship, and ultimately, a painful falling out. He was the guy with the scruffy beard, the mischievous grin, and a knack for finding hidden treasures in dusty barns and forgotten garages. His charm, humor, and expertise made him a fan favorite. But behind the scenes, things weren't always as smooth as they seemed. Long before American Pickers became a reality TV phenomenon, Frank Fritz was just another guy with a love for collecting. But he wasn't alone. His co-star Mike Wolfe shared the same passion. The two first crossed paths in middle school in Bondorf, Iowa. Did they immediately hit it off? Not really. They weren't exactly best friends growing up. But as time went on, their shared love for finding and collecting rare items brought them together. Mike was the one with the big dreams. He had the vision of turning picking into something bigger than just a hobby. He started filming himself going on picking trips, recording his finds, and pitching the idea to networks. Frank, on the other hand, was running his antique shop, Frank's Finds, content with selling his discoveries. It took some convincing, but eventually, Frank agreed to join Mike in his adventures. Little did they know, their road trips would turn into a massive hit. When American Pickers premiered on the History Channel in 2010, it quickly became a favorite among viewers. The premise was simple but addictive. Mike and Frank traveled across the U.S. searching for valuable antiques, rare collectibles, and hidden treasures. They didn't just buy and sell, they told the stories behind the objects, revealing their historical significance and why they mattered. And that's where Frank's charm truly shined. While Mike was often the business-minded, fast-talking negotiator, Frank was the one who connected with people. He had a way of making homeowners feel comfortable, joking around with them, and making the audience feel like they were right there in the moment. He wasn't just buying old gas station signs or rusty motorcycles. He was building relationships. It wasn't just his humor that won people over, it was his authenticity. Frank never came across as someone just doing a job. He loved picking. Whether he was digging through piles of junk or getting excited over a vintage oil can, his enthusiasm was real. And that's why fans connected with him. For over a decade, American pickers thrived. Millions of viewers tuned in to watch Frank and Mike crisscross the country in their van, searching for rusty gold. Their dynamic worked. Mike was the leader, Frank was the able sidekick, and Danielle Colby kept things running smoothly from the office. It was a team effort. But things weren't always as perfect as they seemed on screen. In 2020, fans started noticing something strange. Frank was missing from episodes. At first, there wasn't much explanation. Then came the truth. Frank had taken time off due to health issues, including major back surgery that left him with 185 stitches and 2 rods in his spine. He was also dealing with personal struggles, including addiction issues. For a while, it seemed like he might return to the show, but that never happened. In 2021, Mike announced that Frank was officially no longer part of American Pickers. The announcement wasn't exactly filled with warmth and friendship. The fallout was a friendship broken. When Mike Wolfe addressed Frank's departure, he put out a statement saying he would miss Frank and wished him the best. But Frank wasn't buying it. In a blunt interview, he called Mike's statement BS and claimed that during his time away, Mike never once called to check on him. Imagine that, after decades of working together, one of them goes through a life-altering surgery, and the other doesn't even pick up the phone. Frank didn't hold back. He made it clear that his friendship with Mike had never been as close as people assumed. They worked well together on camera, but off-screen, things were different. He claimed Mike had wanted him out of the show for a long time, and when the opportunity came, he took it. It was a sad and bitter ending to what many thought was an unbreakable partnership. Fans were heartbroken. How could 2 guys who had traveled the country together, laughed together, and built something amazing together, just fall apart like that? Despite how things ended, one thing remained true. Frank Fritz was one of the reasons American Pickers became the success that it did. He wasn't just another reality TV star. He was real. His excitement over an antique toy, his hilarious one-liners, his ability to turn a dull pick into a fun adventure. Those were the moments that made people love the show. Even after his exit, fans continued to support him. Many hoped for his return or, at the very least, some kind of reconciliation between him and Mike. Sadly, that never happened. Frank may have left American Pickers, but his presence in the world of picking will never be forgotten. He proved that passion and personality can turn a simple hobby into something extraordinary. Whether he was uncovering a rare sign in a barn or laughing over an old motorcycle, he brought something special to the show. But beyond picking, Frank's business empire grew. Except for his time on American Pickers, many people don't realize just how much Frank Fritz accomplished in the antiques world. He wasn't just a reality TV star. He was a businessman, a collector, and an expert in his field. His passion for finding hidden treasures didn't stop when the cameras turned off. It was his way of life. Frank understood that the world of antiques was changing. The rise of online shopping meant that collectors weren't just visiting physical shops anymore. They were searching for treasures online. To stay ahead, he expanded his business onto digital platforms, selling collectibles to buyers across the world. His presence on social media and online marketplaces helped him reach a much larger audience than ever before. Anyone who watched American Pickers knew that Frank had a deep love for motorcycles. It wasn't just a passing interest. It was something he had been passionate about since he was a teenager. One of his very first antique purchases was a 1964 Harley-Davidson, a bike that probably made his parents shake their heads, but set the tone for his lifelong obsession with classic motorcycles. Over the years, Frank collected dozens of rare and vintage motorcycles, filling a barn with his prized 2-wheel treasures. But he didn't just keep his knowledge to himself. He decided to share it with the world. In 2013, he wrote a book titled How to Pick Vintage Motorcycles, a guide that walked readers through the process of finding, buying, and maintaining classic bikes. He even included a section on vintage toy motorcycles, proving that his love for picking extended to the smallest details. Writing a book is no small task, but Frank had the expertise and first-hand experience to back it up. His book became a valuable resource for collectors and enthusiasts alike, giving them insight into the world of motorcycle picking from someone who had been doing it for decades. Frank didn't just make a name for himself in antiques. He made sure to give back to the industry that shaped his life. Over the years, he partnered with other experts to host antique fairs and exhibitions, bringing together collectors, dealers, and fans. He loved sharing his passion with others, whether it was through live events, interviews, or even co-authoring American Picker's Guide to Picking, a book that gave readers an inside look at the show and the art of picking itself. What made Frank stand out wasn't just his knowledge, but his ability to make antiques exciting. He had a way of explaining things that made history feel alive. Whether he was talking about an old gas pump or a rare toy from the 1950s, he believed that collecting wasn't just about owning things, it was about preserving the past and telling the stories behind each item. The struggles behind the smile. Even though Frank Fritz always appeared cheerful and full of energy on American Pickers, life behind the scenes was not always so bright. Fans saw a man who cracked jokes, negotiated deals, and got excited over rusty treasures, but they didn't see the battles he was fighting off-screen. Like many celebrities, Frank kept much of his personal life private, but as time went on, some struggles became too big to hide. For years, fans noticed Frank's weight fluctuating. Some assumed it was just part of aging, while others worried something was wrong. Eventually, he revealed the truth. He had been living with Crohn's disease, a chronic illness that affects the digestive tract. This condition can cause severe abdominal pain, weight loss, and extreme fatigue. It's unpredictable, painful, and has no cure. Frank spoke openly about his struggle, sharing that he had lost 65 pounds in an effort to manage his symptoms through a strict diet. But Crohn's is more than just a physical battle. It's emotional too. Imagine never knowing when a flare-up might hit, not being able to eat what you want, and constantly dealing with exhaustion. Still, through all of it, Frank kept going. He didn't let his illness stop him from doing what he loved. Fame is supposed to make life easier, right? More money, more opportunities, more freedom. But for Frank, it also brought something else: pressure. As American Pickers became more popular, Frank's life changed. Suddenly, he wasn't just a guy who loved antiques. He was a celebrity. Everywhere he went, people recognized him, watched his every move, and expected him to be the funny, charismatic picker they saw on TV. But behind that smile, Frank was dealing with anxiety. In a rare moment of vulnerability, he admitted that fame wasn't always easy. The constant attention made him anxious, and like many people struggling with anxiety, he turned to medication for help. Frank was prescribed to Xanax, a medicine commonly used to treat anxiety and panic disorders. But in 2017, his name made headlines for all the wrong reasons. One night, Frank made a mistake that would follow him for years. In July 2017, he was pulled over on an Iowa interstate after driving the wrong way. He admitted to drinking and taking Xanax before getting behind the wheel. It was his first offense, but the consequences were serious. He was charged with operating while intoxicated, fined, and required to take substance education courses. As if his struggles with health and the law weren't enough, Frank's personal life was also falling apart. In 2017, he got engaged to Diane Bank, the woman he thought he would spend the rest of his life with. He bought a house for them, an expensive ring, and dreamed of a future together. But everything came crashing down when Diane accused Frank of cheating. She claimed she caught him with another woman in their farmhouse, leading to a bitter